நரேந்திர மோடி ஐயா அவருடைய 21 ஆண்டு காலம் இந்தியாவுடைய முதலமைச்சராக பிரதமராக அவரை பல கண்ணோட்டத்திலே பல மனிதர்கள் பார்த்திருக்கின்றார்கள். அதனுடைய தொகுப்பாக இந்த புத்தகம் இருக்கிறது, மோடி at 20. இதனை வெளியிட்டு பேச வந்திருக்கக்கூடிய மனிதரும் கூட அதற்கு முழு பொருத்தமாக இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு மனிதர், நம்முடைய பாரத பிரதமரை மிக அருகாமையிலிருந்து பார்க்கக்கூடியவர். If there is one minister in the central cabinet who watches our Prime Minister very closely, who has got the privilege to interact with our Prime Minister on a daily basis, and who can talk about this great man and the way he is shaping up Indian democracy, the way he is shaping up the world order. If there is one person who can talk legitimately, fully, completely, it is none other than our Minister of State for Science and Technology and Air, Prime Minister's Office, Public Grievances and Pension, Department of Atomic Energy, Department of Space, Sri Dr. Jitendra Singh ji. It is also another honor that sir comes from one part of India, from the Jammu and Kashmir, and today he is in the farthest part of the other part of India, in Tamil Nadu and Chennai. So we cannot find a better person to come and talk about the idea of India which Modi ji is shaping up. This event is not possible without our former National Secretary, our senior leader and the convener of Modi at 20 for Southern India, Sri H.Raja ji, and our young state secretary who is part of this committee, who is spearheading this project in Tamil Nadu, Sri S.G. Surya ji, and some of the great people who are sitting here. 31 years back, they all decided they wanted a wonderful college in the heart of Chennai, a college for women which would focus on integrity, which would focus on high quality education, which would focus on shaping some fantastic women who can come out into the field and achieve various great things. So all those great people are sitting here, especially in the stage, the chairperson board of governors, Sri M.D. Srinivas ji, and people sitting in the front row, Deepak Mehta ji, Kannodi ji, and all senior people part of this board. And very, very importantly, the principal of this great college, Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan, who is chiseling all those vision into a daily action, Madam Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan. And we all know MOB Vaishnav is one of the great educational institutions in Tamil Nadu, especially in Chennai. And we keep seeing your laurels in different newspapers, different television channels, in sports, in academics, in all different fields. You have brought laurels to Tamil Nadu, laurels to India. In the recent Kelo India Games also, which our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has started for the youth of our country, in the girls section, out of the 20 medals that Tamil Nadu got, 16 medals came from the single college. One college produced 16 medals out of 20. In the recent chess Olympiad, one of your students represented India and she won a bronze medal also, Vaishali got a bronze medal representing our country in the chess Olympiad. And Anita Paldurai, who was our former basketball India captain, and an excellent woman, excellent role model, she also comes from your college. We can keep talking about it. So we are very happy that today it's our privilege to bring our Dr. Jitendra Singh ji to this wonderful college to talk to these young, eager minds about this book. Definitely, this is not the politician's journey. Often you see a politician gets eulogized. He gets spoken about in very high order. If we say a politician does miracle, a politician is equal to God, that is how a politician is eulogized. But especially with respect to our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, he has transcended the image of politician long time back. He has transcended that image. He is a doer. He is India's one of our finest administrator. More than a Prime Minister, he is a Vishwaguru of our country now. Because his thinking, his idea, the way he wants to execute it, the way he wants to put the map of India in the global world order is something we got to see this book, read this book and hear from it. This book is not written by his fan followers, admirers like me or some of the admirers sitting here. We had never had the opportunity to write this book. This book is written by eminent people from different distinctive walks of life who had the privilege of watching our Prime Minister very closely. Our badminton superstar, P.V. Sindhu, Olympian, she wrote about at the age of 72 why our Prime Minister Modi ji is India's undisputed youth icon. We say 35, 25, 18 is youth.
Now we believe Modi ji at 72 years is India's top youth icon. Nobody can compete with him in terms of reaching the minds of youth. P.V. Sindhu ji writes about it. With respect to the education, the fundamental transformation. Apollo Shobha Kamini, she writes about how Modi ji has reimagined the healthcare system of our country. All his policies are people-centric. He is one Prime Minister who sits in Delhi. Equally, he thinks about our Jitendra Singh ji's state, a border village in the border of Kashmir called Turtuk. He thinks about Turtuk. He wants to improve the facilities of a village in Kashmir called Turtuk. The same Prime Minister thinks about Tamil Nadu's last village in Kanyakumari called Takale. He is one Prime Minister whose heart beats for the extreme points of India, for every single population who might not have the same access to our urban area or the same access to the capital city. And with respect to India becoming a Vishwa Guru, India is becoming a Vishwa Guru. We are reclaiming our heritage, reclaiming our civilization. Amish Tripathi ji wonderfully talks about Modi ji, how he is trying to reclaim everything of Indianness, of being a Bharatiya. For the first time, just yesterday, our Honorable Governor in Tamil Nadu has launched a very unique program of sending 2,500 people from Tamil Nadu to Varanasi, calling the Kasi Tamil Sangamam. So 2,500 people from Tamil Nadu, including 200 students, you are going to Kashi in the next 1 month to see Kashi, to see Ayodhya, to see Allahabad. Likewise, they will also come to Tamil Nadu. Ek Bharat, Shrestha Bharat, Ore Bharadam, Unnada Bharadam. Yes, just yesterday it is Modi ji's vision which got realized in Tamil Nadu, the program got launched. Likewise, eminent people have written bird's eye view of our Prime Minister's functioning, the way he thinks, the way he operates. For anybody who had the privilege of reading this book, after reading a book, trust me, I can assure you, you will be a changed person. Your perspectives about life will change. This is a story of a boy born in Gujarat in 1950 to a mother, to a father who are struggling to earn their livelihood. Father who was selling tea in a railway station, to a mother who was struggling to bring up Modi. It is the story of a boy born in 1950. And this boy has traveled 72 years in our great country, from a boy to an adult to a man to an administrator, to a politician, to India's world's Vishwaguru. You will see very beautifully in this book the transformation of a boy to a Vishwaguru. In 72 years, you will see this beautiful transformation. That is why it is our privilege to be part of this event in one of Tamil Nadu's, Chennai's finest college, MOB Vaishnav, because we believe the next generation of Indians should get inspired about this great Vishwaguru, the kind of things he does, he dreams. His heart beats for India. Just yesterday, the Russian President Putin, in a speech in Moscow, he says, you cannot see a better patriot than Narendra Modi. You cannot see a better patriot. He is one guy who has fundamentally transformed the way India is seen in the world. Is Make in India, look at that project, how it has transformed India. Certificates after certificates, the global world leaders, so-called superpowers, they are giving to this humble son of the soil, born in a small village in Gujarat, India's Prime Minister now, certificates after certificates. Russia-Ukraine issue, India's stand is being widely appreciated. So it's a great privilege to bring Dr. Jitendra Singh ji. As I said earlier, nobody can present our Honorable Prime Minister very well than him, because he has got the unique distinction of watching our Prime Minister very closely. I thank our MOB Vaishnav College for consenting, agreeing to host this wonderful function, and also for our media நண்பர்கள் பெரிய அளவில் இங்கே வந்திருக்கிறாங்க இந்த காலேஜுக்கு, இந்த விழாவுக்கு. நிச்சயமாக இந்த புத்தகம் மோடி அட் 20 என்பது தமிழகத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய அனைவருமே படிக்க வேண்டிய ஒரு புத்தகம். இதை நம்முடைய மீடியா நண்பர்கள் பட்டி தொட்டி எல்லாம் நீங்கள் எடுத்துச் செல்வீர்கள் என்கின்ற நம்பிக்கையோடு எனக்கு பேச வாய்ப்பளித்த MOB வைஷ்ணவ் அவர்களுக்கு, அண்ணன் H.Raja அவர்களுக்கு, தம்பி SG சூர்யா அவர்களுக்கு நன்றி கலந்த வணக்கத்தை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம். பாரத் மாதா கி ஜெய்.
இது மோடி அவர்களை பற்றிய புத்தகம் அல்ல. இது அவருடைய நிர்வாக அணுகுமுறை. ஒவ்வொரு துறையிலும் சோஷியல் எம்பவர்மெண்ட், பொருளாதாரம், வெளிநாட்டு உறவுகள், அம்மாதிரியாக அவருடைய நிர்வாகத்தினுடைய இன்சைட் என்ன. நான் இங்க சொல்ல மறந்துட்டேன். சென்னை மாநகரின் பாஜகவின் ஒரே கார்பரேட்டர் திருமதி உமானந்தன் அவர்களே. ஆகவே இது ஒருவர் புத்தகமாக எழுதியிருந்தால் இந்த புத்தகத்தில் போய் 21 பேர் அவர்களுடைய கட்டுரைகளை எழுதியிருக்கிறார். யாராவது ஒருவர் புத்தகம் போட்டிருந்தால் இப்படி பல்வேறு விஷயங்களும் மக்களுக்கு கொண்டு வந்திருக்க முடியுமாங்கிறது சந்தேகம். நீங்க பாத்தீங்கன்னா பிஜேபி எதிர்த்து போட்டியிட்ட நந்தன் இளங்கனி கூட ஒரு ஆர்டிக்கலை எழுதியிருக்கார். நம்முடைய மாண்புமிகு உள்துறை அமைச்சர் அமித்ஷா அவர்கள், சகோதரி சித்து அவர்கள், இந்த மாதிரியாக 21 ஆத்தர்ஸ் ஒவ்வொரு சப்ஜெக்ட்லையும் இது 5 பெரிய சாப்டரா பிரித்து 21 கட்டுரைகள் எழுதப்பட்டிருக்கு. ஆகவே இதை மாணவர்கள் படிக்கணும். அதுவும் குறிப்பாக தமிழ்நாட்டில் இங்கு நான் பெண் குழந்தைகள் என்றே சொல்லுவேன். காரணம், எனக்கு 4 பேர குழந்தைகள் உண்டு. எனவே தமிழகத்தில் இந்த மாதிரியான உண்மைகளை நாம் அறிந்து கொள்ள வேண்டியது அவசியமாகிறது. ஏன்னா பொய்களை நேரேட்டிவா செட் பண்ணி நீங்க 20 ஆண்டுகள் தொடர்ந்து எலெக்டிவ் பொசிஷன்ல மோடிஜி இருந்திருக்காரு. இந்தியா பல்வேறு டைவர்சிட்டிஸ் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு தேசம். ஆகவே அதுவும் டெமோக்ரஸி இங்க ரொம்ப ஃப்ரீ டெமோக்ரஸி, யார் வேணா என்ன வேணா பேசலாம். அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு ஆர்குமெண்டேட்டிவ் dissent is an essence of democracy, there is no doubt about it. ஆனால் அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சொசைட்டியில் 20 ஆண்டுகள் ஒரு தேர்தலுக்கு தேர்தல், அவர் 2001 அக்டோபர் மாதம் குஜராத்தின் முதலமைச்சராக பொறுப்பேற்றதிலிருந்து 2014 பிரதமராக 19 14 பெற்றதை விட அதிக வெற்றி. ஆகவே உலகத்திலேயே 20 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேல், இன்னைக்கு 22 வருஷம் ஆகும்போது, அவருடைய ஒவ்வொரு விஷயத்திலும் சோஷியல் எம்பவர்மெண்ட்னா என்ன, பொருளாதார அணுகுமுறை என்ன, அந்நிய நாட்டு உறவுகள் அணுகுமுறை என்ன என்கின்ற அனைத்து உண்மைகளும் நம் கண் முன்பாக இந்த புத்தகம் படம் போட்டு காட்டியிருக்கிறது. ஆகவே இந்த புத்தகத்தை இன்னைக்கு மிகப்பெரிய வலிமை மிக்க ஒரு அமைச்சர் டாக்டர் ஜிதேந்திர பிரசாத் அவர்கள், அவர் அதோடு மட்டுமல்ல, பாரத தாயின் தலை மகுடத்திலிருந்து தேர்ந்தெடுக்கப்பட்டு அவர் பாராளுமன்றத்தில் பணியாற்றி கொண்டிருக்கிறார். ஆகவே அவர் இதை உங்களுக்கு அறிமுகப்படுத்தி பேச இருப்பது நமக்கு கிடைத்த ஒரு பெரிய பாக்கியமாக கருதி, நீங்கள் அனைவரும் அவர் சொல்லுகின்ற கருத்தினை உன்னிப்பாக உள்வாங்கி உண்மை நிலையை நாம் உணர்வதோடு மக்களுக்கும் நம்மோடு இருப்பவர்களுக்கும் எடுத்துச் சொல்ல வேண்டும் என்று கேட்டுக்கொண்டு என்னுடைய வார்த்தைகளை நிறைவு செய்கிறேன்.
That this is one of the most illustrious women colleges now in Chennai, and I must say, seeing the sequence of visuals that we had, and I must compliment the principal, you have started producing luminaries one after the other, and also celebrities at the same time. So this is something which gives an education institution and an identity of its own. The faculty and the alumni, they are the two, because I have myself been a teacher for over quarter of a century, so I can bear that out. And therefore, as Annamalai ji was saying, I also have to thank you that you have made this possible happen, because this exchange of thoughts would, I'm sure, happen with a galaxy of bright brains sitting over here. I also feel gratified for another reason, that I asked Dr. Lalita, and she said this college is affiliated to Madras University. And most of you don't know that I am an alumni of Madras University. The only difference is that I obtained my degree from Madras University nearly 10 years before this college was born. So much has changed since then. The very fact that Chennai was known as Madras at that time. And we had only one university. Now, of course, for the medical colleges, you have a different university. You have that MGR Medical. We had only one university, and over that time we had just about 8 or 9 government colleges. All of these, including the Pondicherry, Jipmer, were affiliated to one university. And then, of course, suddenly, after 1980 or mid-80s, the expansion happened all of a sudden. The private colleges, of course, professional, were not much heard of. So it gives me an added pleasure to see that now the place like Chennai, which was always known as a seat of learning, with teachers like Dr. Radhakrishnan, identified with this college, with this university. You have a college which is yet another addition to that sequence of glories that have added to this university and this seat of learning. Incidentally, in our case, we used to have our first year English classes in Loyola College. So many of the graduates from Loyola at that time also happened to be my contemporaries. And then we would go back to the medical college. It was like that. The arrangements were different because we were at that time Madras was following a British pattern of education till it changed over. Anyway, now coming straight to the subject of the book, and as has been sufficiently elaborated by the other speakers, this is a book, as Annamalai was saying, the reflection of the characters and shades of Prime Minister Modi and the India that he's walked through over the last 20 years. The question is, why Modi at 20? Of course, as was being rightly said by H.Raja ji, that here we have a person who is possibly the only one in the entire Indian subcontinent, maybe the world, who has consistently been head of the government for 20 years without a break. And an elected head. So I think this is a unique record which would go in the Guinness Book. You won't have any head of the state consistently being the head. First as Chief Minister, the former Chief Minister, then as former Prime Minister, and that too elected. And therefore there are 21 chapters in the book written by different persons who have had the opportunity of working with him and also trying to reflect upon the phenomena of Narendra Modi in their own way. For example, you have Sudha Murthy telling us how this is a transformation of India from what it was nearly 25 years ago to the aspirational India that we see today. You have Jai Shankar, because he's the son of the soil, writing a chapter. And otherwise, in one of the informal conversations, he told me that when he was ambassador in China and Modi ji went there as chief minister, he landed there late in the night. And he wanted to be brief because he said, I'll start my routine early morning. So it was quite a different kind of experience for them, maybe a shock for them, because the dignitaries who earlier visited never, were found to be that industrious and that hardworking. And now, of course, that is a way of working for the government itself, because Modi is the head, so nobody can afford to be otherwise. You have P.V. Sindhu, as was being mentioned by Annamalai ji. You have Lata Mangeshkar writing how he has the knack of striking a spontaneous bond. She said, the first time I met him, it was like a brother-sister bond happening. And then, of course, you have Nandan Niklani writing about technology-driven governance. So what I'm saying is that it's, of course, as was being mentioned, I have had the opportunity of being part of his team and having watched him closely, and I could write 8 volumes, rather 20 volumes for 20 years. But having said that, I think this book is also meant for the education institutions, because someday somebody could do a research on this and could do even a PhD on this. So this is more of a case study. It should be taken more of a case study because, and since I have this bad habit of talking like a teacher because I was paid for talking like that, So I can't get away. This, I'm saying so because this is actually a case study. It is a case study of a model which has sustained itself for 20 years and continues to sustain in future as well. That is the promise it's holding. So this is something which requires to be researched, to be studied for the others to follow. Maybe it's a governance model, it's a model of carrying out a government, or in a nutshell, a governance model which has three aspects which need to be researched into. And I'm sure some of the students there would feel inspired to do so. A model, because nowadays we are very fashionably talking of sustainable goals. You have these SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. This is a very fashionable term. Even UN uses this very. So this is one of the SDGs in governance. A sustainable goal which has lasted for 20 years and promises to last even future. The second research aspect is that it has defied, it's a model which defies the principle of diminishing returns. You know, each phenomena is destined to meet the fate of diminishing returns. Even in the married life, you get, you know, not so crazy about each other over the period of time. And of course, in the governments, you have anti-incumbencies, you have so many things, people want a change. Here is a model of governance which has actually defied that principle. And on the contrary, instead of meeting the fate of diminishing returns, the returns have consistently increased. So every election that he went in, he came back with a larger majority, the last one being the largest. So that's again something to be researched into. Why so? Because if it is true, and if it has happened, then possibly there's something to learn from it. And the third is that this is a model which has grown stronger with each challenge. Mostly the models, they tend to weaken or crumble when confronted with an obstructionist event or a challenge. And the most notable example is that as Chief Minister, soon after he took over, there was an earthquake, a very disastrous earthquake, Bhuj earthquake in Gujarat. And the manner he managed it, it became a kind of a success story for the rest of the world. And as Prime Minister, very recently, you're seeing the COVID pandemic. When everybody thought India would crumble and India would actually become a risk factor for the rest of the world, with this 135 crore population and heterogeneous from north to south, from up to northeast, it is India alone which survived, respectively, while smaller European nations, like you see United Kingdom, the fate that they have gone through. So I think for all these three broad reasons, this is a research model. Now, as a person, what is it? Because I have also tried to research into these three aspects. So I can leave a cue and you can carry it forward for a thesis. As a person, what were the attributes which helped him to facilitate this model? A, that he has an unquenchable quest to study. A great learner. He's never tired of learning. And therefore he becomes I often tell people, more than a Prime Minister, he's a resource person. So if you are going to meet him with some subject, and of course he knows that you are going to come to him to discuss so and so, he would have, already accustomed himself, acquainted himself, read about it, good enough, not only to interact with you, but leave you at the end of the discussion with some new cues about it. And that is, I think, at least I made a principle for myself to try to learn one new thing every day, even otherwise. But a focused learning of the subject that is at hand immediately is what keeps that going. His long hours of innovation and introspection, he's constantly trying to innovate and play with ideas. And that's why you see so many schemes happening. His intimate connect with the ground, which of course is evident. And when I say innovation and playing with ideas, I think one of the best examples is this aspirational district. Nobody ever thought we could have something like that. For 70 years we had backward districts. But this was a scientifically designed model. You have about 41 indices. There is health, there is education, there is connectivity, there is accessibility, and depending on one single parameter, a district may be lagging behind. It could be high up on the other parameters. So how best to bring that district at par with the number one district in that parameter in the state, and then vis-a-vis number one at the national level. So we have about 750 odd districts. So how scientifically this model was designed with a dashboard, time to time changing the rating. So that is only when you are focused and you are concentrating on ideas, you get this. Now, what makes him different? I'm talking of certain things which are not there in book, but what I would gather after knowing him or reading him. A, that he has the capacity to take out-of-box decisions. Most of us feel comfortable being status quo because, that is a tried course which has sustained my predecessors and which sustained me also. And I think one of the best examples was that soon after this government was sworn in on the 26th of May 2014, one of the earliest decisions that he took was to do away with that dubious practice of getting the certificates attested. And I sometimes wonder why this couldn't have happened earlier. This was a dubious legacy of the British Empire because they didn't want to trust their subjects. They had introduced this. And coming from the kind of background that many of us like me come from, a semi-rural background or a rural background, when we got into class 9 or class 10, we didn't know where to get the certificate tested from because we didn't have a gazetted officer for miles together from where I lived. And we wondered as small children how he would look with 2 noses or 4 ears or whatever would be the shape of the gazetted officer. He became such a dream object for us. And I remember when I was in class 11, I had to shell out ₹5 to get my certificates attested because, and I didn't carry that kind of money. Somebody paid for me because some good Samaritan came and he said, okay, don't worry, give me all these certificates. By the end of the day, I'll get them attested to a big man, some officer. So within, the government came in May, by September this was done with. So that is one instance of this. Secondly, of course, the Article 370, which everybody made fun of BJP. H.Raja ji is an old timer, he knows. Whenever BJP was to release the manifesto, the usual gossip and joke would be, we know what is there. They will write Article 370 to be removed and they will not remove. So these are 2 instances I'm giving. Secondly, his capacity to break the taboos of the past. Like, for example, because otherwise I can go for the whole day. You have one of the departments called Space Technology, ISRO, which I am also dealing with its headquarters in Bangalore. For 70 years, it was actually functioning behind a veil of secrecy. Nobody was allowed to enter it. In fact, soon after this government came in and Dr. K. was the chairman of ISRO, he told me there was a launching going to happen at 4 o'clock in the morning and he said, Doc, I'll take you to a place where even my scientists are forbidden, that launching pad. So just about 2 hours before the launching, we went there and he showed me all the details. Then I told him, I said, Radha, I made a principle to try to learn one new thing. What I learned today is that to reach this place, either one has to be as world-renowned scientist as you are, or somehow enter politics and become a minister. But then on a serious note, I was wondering why this has been so. And at least you are from a different generation, but my generation grew up reading a small remote news in a remote corner with a dateline Siri Harikota. Nobody knew where it is. Some launching would happen. Now, 3 years back, when this was put across him, can you imagine? Now the space sector has been open to private players, and within 2 years we have 102 startups. Many of the college boys and girls, the youngest one is just about class 11 boy. So which means our young minds and brains, and also the Indians at large, had that kind of potential, they had that kind of capacity. But we had actually made ourselves prisoner of our taboos of the past, and nobody was daring to bell the cat. And now see how, and now I was amazed that even most of the functionaries in NASA, which is the premier institution in USA, are from India. So that is the state of affairs. And so this is one example. The third, of course, is his capacity to convert a government campaign into a mass campaign. He speaks about Swachhata from the Red Fort. People don't understand what's it all about. And people are sometimes also amazed. The Prime Minister in his Independence Day address making a call to build toilets. Whereas, usually you got used to lofty platitudes by being delivered by the Prime Minister, whoever be the Prime Minister on the Independence Day. Here the Prime Minister was saying, please build toilets, beginning with the toilets from the girls' schools. Within 1 year, we had 4 lakh toilets built. So he was talking of the foundational issues, but his trustworthiness and his commitment to the grassroots sentiment was such that the masses adopted that. In my constituency, I had a girl, class 9. She refused going to school. She told her parents that Modi has said from Red Fort that there should be a toilet, so build the toilet over here. When I got to know, I got in touch with the collector. They got a toilet in that house, and then they did a survey. There were 200 such houses in that village which did not have toilet. So masses, there was an 80-year-old lady again in my own constituency who started going around raking which house had a toilet, which did not. So this doesn't happen often because we've seen the government launches a campaign and people don't take it seriously. We've seen the fate of that family planning, hum do, hamare do, whatever, started in 1960. Where has it landed? So that is, but this capacity comes through years and years of credibility building, which happens when you are able to evidently convince your masses about your sincerity and commitment. So people believe that if Modi has said, that means there must be some good for us. And fourth, of course, his futuristic vision, which is reflected in the Startup India. I again remember 2015 in Independence Day address, because Swachhata he said in 2014 Independence Day address. Each address was dedicated to some of the foundations. In 2015 he said Startup India, Stand Up India. Many people are asking what does this mean? And today, before 2014, we just had about 350 or 400 startups. Today, it has gone up to 80,000, and Indian startup ecosystem is rated 3rd in the world. And I was amazed and also very pleasantly impressed. Most of the European countries and US, they are preferring Indian boys and girls in their startup groups. See, I was in Germany about 2 months back. So out of my inquisitiveness, I wanted to find out why Indian boys, girls are preferred. So they gave me a list of reasons. One of them, which would fascinate you, was they said the Indian boys and girls don't take a weekend off. So, whereas a white boy will disappear on Friday evening and reappear on the... But that again speaks volumes of the kind of commitment and capacity to work we have. So this, because Modi knew that no government in the world, and I think that's also for each one of us to appreciate, no government in the world can provide a salaried government job to each and every individual. Many of us tell a lie during the election. We'll give you so many jobs, we'll give you so many. This doesn't happen. This is mostly the election times it is said. But yes, a responsible government is consistently devising means to provide livelihood, or means which would enable a youngster to earn his or own livelihood. And therein comes this startup movement. So it is in last 7-8 years, India's startup movement is being cited the world over. And we have enormous avenues which were remaining unexplored, which have now got to be explored. And of course, in governance, as I said, the attestation was done away with. The interviews were abolished so that you have a level playing field. A number of reforms also in my own departments, which if I go on and on, because there will be a separate chapter on governance itself. Pensions, for example, is a lesser known department, not much was talked about it. About 2-3 reforms which I came across, we did that because we knew Prime Minister would support us. Like for example, there was a clause that if a daughter seeks divorce or separation, she would not get the pension or the family pension of her parents unless she gets a judgment from the court. I knew of so many cases, VVIP cases, some of the foreign ministers not being able to get rid, not getting a divorce from the court for 20 years. I said, how will this benefit? So he said, just let the petition happen. If there is an evidence of the petition having been filed, let the daughter get the benefit. Similarly, there was a clause that if a person dies before completing 10 years of government service, his family is not entitled to pension. I said, it's such a ridiculous thing. Did you ask him or did you tell him that if he dies, either you give him the choice so that he doesn't die for 10 years. If you have not given him the choice, what right do you have to deprive his family? So we did away. Then there was another clause, for example, that if a person goes missing, and this was a huge problem in Northeast, in Kashmir, in left violence areas, Annamalai from the police background knows that. Individuals go missing, sometimes they are discovered, sometimes not discovered, sometimes dead body, sometimes not at all. So the clause was that either bring the dead body or wait for 7 years. I said that is precisely the time when it is required. So we actually did away with that. Pension was only, soon after the government came, I think within 3 months, Prime Minister intervened and we issued an order that the minimum pension would be 1,000 rupees. And we were asked to hold programs to launch it in different parts of the country. I was given Chandigarh. I was there along with the Member of Parliament, Madam Kiran Kher, and we were distributing the checks. You would not believe, an elderly woman came, she fell at our feet, we were so embarrassed, we raised her. She said, no, you won't understand. My husband died 25 years ago. My family pension was just 35 rupees. And for 35 rupees every month, on the first, I had to come here. So go back and tell Modi, if he had come earlier, the story of my life would have been different. So you can just imagine the plight of that woman. The traveling itself would have cost her 10 rupees. So many of the reforms which have happened in the last 8 years are not only governance reforms, but they are actually social reforms, which were waiting to happen depending upon the contemporary scenario that India is going through. Similarly, the Corruption Act was also changed. Earlier on, anybody could lodge a complaint. Now the bribe giver is also equally culpable. So all these reforms, which were actually waiting to happen in the context of the socio-economic scenario that India is going through. Similarly, most of the development works, most of the schemes were oriented not depending on the vote bank consideration, but depending upon the requirement. That Antodaya concept that we have been following, the last man in the last queue, the Ujjwala program, wherever it is required, the gas cylinder will reach. Nobody asked, what is your religion, what is your caste, what is your region, not even that, which party did you vote for. So this change of political culture, change of work culture, which has been subtly, unspokenly introduced through Modi's style of working, is something which is not talked about, which is not being realized, but it will happen after a generation. So we leave it to the people's wisdom to decide whether to vote for me or not. But what I do is, I do out of my conscience to reach out to those who require me. So this is something which is, and then from the youth point of view, as I said, next 25 years are going to be the young startups, young entrepreneurs, and young administrators. And those who have 25 active, energetic years to put in, because when India turns 100, it is you who will have the privilege to celebrate Century India. And you will also have the opportunity and privilege to say that you also contributed to the making of India at 2047. As far as we are concerned, maybe our satisfaction lies in the fact that we should be able to build your capacities for that. And to build the capacities for that, we need to reach out to you so that we are able to lead you in a direction where you can find, again, sustainable goals of economy. India has vast areas which have remained unexplored. Our agriculture area, Now that's a separate lecture on startups. I think I have another 2 days later. I'm going to do that also. I'll tell that. For example, in startup, mostly because Madras and Bangalore are the birthplaces, startup has somehow got fixed with IT, electronics. It's not so. It's more to do with innovation. And India's greatest potential is agriculture. So the agri-tech startup. We have started something called aroma mission, lavender cultivation. Boys and girls have made lakhs out of this. Many of them are not even science graduates. Some of them are just school dropouts. So these are the areas which Modi has tried to push in, considering the fact that we have to now dedicate our next 25 years to the building of these boys and girls. And I'm sure in 2047, I know how many of us will be around, but those of us are there, will be able to celebrate some of these girls tutored by Dr. Lalita Balakrishnan, who will be doing honors to India in 2047. Thank you once again.